with another episode of the Online Wedding Planner. This is the part 2 of how to start planning your wedding without stressing out, and this week we're talking about budgets. Now I know that a lot of people don't really like to talk about this topic very much, but it's important. So first and foremost, you need to decide who is actually going to be contributing to your wedding and who's actually going to be paying for the majority of it. And so sometimes parents get involved, and both sides of the parents will contribute to a pool that you have going, and then of course the bride and groom will often contribute to that budget as well. Once you know who's going to be contributing to your wedding, you're going to pull all those amounts together to create your one big wedding budget, and that is the number that you need to stay within as you start planning your wedding. Next week we'll be talking about the first couple of steps that you're going to do in actually booking venues and vendors and things like that. But the main thing is that you need to, once you have that number established, you're going to start to go through the whole consultations, interviews, things like that, start getting to know some people, start looking at some venues. Once you're ready to start looking at venues and vendors, it's really important to get quotes from people before you actually sign any documents. That'll give you a really good ability to be able to compare different people in that field, as well as to kind of start putting your budget together without having signed anything quite yet. So if you have a venue that includes a caterer for $20,000, and then you have a photographer that quoted you at $6,000, a videographer that quoted you at $4,000, a florist that quoted you at $6,000, you're able to really get a good idea of what the total sum is going to be before you actually sign any documents. So if you kind of start to see, oh my gosh, I'm like $10,000 over my budget, that's when you can actually start negotiating with your vendors that you really love, or you start to find vendors within the category that you feel like you can take away from. So that is, if you are someone who values photography, it's important to spend a lot of your budget on photography, or not a lot, but a substantial amount on photography, and maybe take away things like a florist, where you don't really need your wedding to be big, grand, decorated with flowers. Now you might be the kind of bride who is, no, I want it to be flowers galore, and I don't really care about what my wedding video is going to look like. I just want it to be documented on film, which is totally fine, and that will lead me to tell you that you need to spend a substantial amount of money of your budget onto the decorator and the florist rather than photography and videography. So kind of get a good idea of what you value first, and then as you start to get quotes from different vendors, kind of have a little pretend, thing going where you kind of start to add it all up to your budget, see how it compares to the real budget that you have going, and then that'll be able to help you to eliminate here and there and kind of decide where you want to spend, splurge, or where you want to save on. And so I hope that helps. If you have any questions with budget, as always, feel free to shoot me an email at evelynn with 2 N's at eventsbyevelynn.com, and I'll be happy to help in any way I can. We'll see you next week. We'll be talking about starting to pick your venue, which will lead you to pick your date, and then how to start selecting your vendors, the big ones that'll help the whole planning process get rolling.